Hi everyone, this is Samantha from the Dancing Soap Dish. I hope you're well. I'm getting festive this week with these cute little Christmas tree melt and pour soap sponge combinations. So I've combined a shea butter melt and pour soap base with a compressed cellulose sponge, which I cut these cute little Christmas tree shapes out of. And I've taken the Christmas tree shapes and put them into some soap bars, but I've also used the cutout sections of the sponge. So these ones have soap through the middle. See how thick the sponge is? And there's all soap all the way through the sponge as well, filling up all the little gaps and everything. So that when you use it, the center part, you can get a really good lather from the Christmas tree soap in the center and get a really good exfoliate from that cellulose-based sponge around the outside. Now this is similar to a project I did a little while ago where I had compressed cellulose sponges that I just sort of added to the tips of some soap bars. These work exactly the same way, except these sponges are a little bit thicker and they're rectangular shaped, not circular. But I found these online and thought they'd be really cool, and I thought, you know what, these might actually fit along the bottom of my soap loaf mold. They're going to need a little bit of trimming in order to fit, but I think they will fit quite well. So I'm just going to measure here. I know that 8.5 centimeters is sort of like the length that I need for these sponges. So I'm just getting a ruler and marking off that measurement with my ball tipped stylus. And then I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and just cut that little piece off, and then hopefully this should fit perfectly inside my mold. Yes, it does. That's really awesome. Okay, so now I'm just going to measure and cut the remainder of my sponges, and then I'll check and see that they all fit inside. I noticed they're not all necessarily the same width, so I had to trim a couple just a little bit off the width of all of them as well, because I want there to be a little bit of a gap between each of them, because these compressed sponges are going to expand once they come into contact with the water in the soap, and I need a little bit of extra room there just to give them some space. So I'm happy with that. Okay, so I wanted to show you this. I took a couple of the offcuts and I put them in some water to show you how thick these sponges will actually expand to. So it's really great to use them compressed, put them in the soap, and then as they expand, they draw all the soap into them and become really saturated with the soap. Okay, so in order to get my Christmas tree shaped, I decided to go for cookie cutters. I've got a variety here of Christmas tree cookie cutters, so I'm just going to have a look at which one I think is the best. I need one that is a good size that actually fits. See, this one's too big. It needs to fit the rectangle of the sponge. Not too impressed with that shape really. And this one's kind of rounded, which I think might be a little bit tricky to cut out. So I think I'm going to go with this one here. It's a good shape, not too big, not too small. Takes up a good amount of the sponge. I wonder if I'm lucky enough, if I could just sort of press this in here and see if it will make a mark. No, it won't. I mean, this sponge is compressed to like a fraction of its original size, so its surface is quite hard. So yeah, I'm going to need a pencil. I'm just going to go along the inside of the cookie cutter. You could go around the outside, but I just noticed that this cookie cutter is quite close to the edges of the sponge, so I'm just going to go around the inside. Just mark that off with a pencil there like that. Now I've used a cookie cutter to get my Christmas tree shape. That was just sort of like a cheat that I wanted to use, but I mean, if you don't have a cookie cutter, you could get a Christmas tree shape online and just print out like a performer or something that you could trace around. You can use anything that you want, but I've now traced all of these cookie cutters, so I have 4 little Christmas tree drawings on my sponges. I need to cut this out now. The best way to do that is with a craft knife. Obviously I don't want to use scissors because I want to use both pieces of the sponge. So I'm just going to use this knife here. I found that, because the sponge is quite hard, it can take a while to get through. but I'm just sort of working my way around. This is why I didn't want sort of like a shape with rounded edges. That the angles of this Christmas tree and sort of like the sharp points are working very well as I'm trying to cut it out with this craft knife. It would be hard to try and create some rounded edges. But there we go. That didn't take too long. I'm also just going to take my scissors and just give it a bit of a clean up. Make sure that all the edges are nice and trimmed. There we go, and that'll just help the sponge look nice. It'll just finish it off nicely. There we go. Making sure this is nice and neat now will give you good results later. Okay, we'll get all that out of the way. So I have here a beautiful blue Christmas tree and also the surround. Here are all the other ones that I've already cut out. So I'll just pop those out the way, and then here in the bottom of my soap loaf mold I have all the others. And there we go. Now I'm ready to pour some soap. Okay, so here I am. I'm making sure I've got everything on hand ready to go. I've got my little Christmas tree sponges and my soap mold. I have some Siberian fir essential oil that I'm going to scent my soap with, and I also have cut up my shea butter melt and pour soap base. I'm going to want to make 4 3-ounce soap bars, so I have 12 ounces of soap base here. I've melted it. I'm giving it a good stir. I'm stirring in the essential oils, and once I'm happy with that, I'm going to pour it into my mold. Yeah, I think I'll pour all of it in. I thought I was maybe going to do half, but just pour it all in. I've got some isopropyl alcohol ready to go. And what I'm doing now is I'm just going to add my sponges and let them soak up the soap. So this is, as you can see, this is causing lots of bubbles that are sort of coming out of the air pockets in the sponges. And these sponges are floating, which I don't really want. I want them to sit on the bottom of the mold. Last time I did this, with the circular soaps, I pressed them down so they sat on the bottom, and that worked quite well. I'm just picking this up to have a look at the bottom just to see if they're sitting there. Now these sponges are a lot thicker than the ones I used previously, so I'm just giving them some time here. They are expanding quite rapidly to their thickness. I just keep pushing them down with my spoon because I can see that they're starting to rise from the bottom, and I don't want that. Okay, so now I have here also just some rectangular soap molds that I'm going to do the soap bars that contain my Christmas tree sponges. I don't want those in there just yet. Again, I want to make 4 3-ounce soap bars. I've got 12 ounces of soap, and I've got some sort of a forest blend of essential oils. I have melted my soap in the microwave, and I'm just adding the essential oils for the scent. You can color this if you want. I just like the look of white with the colored sponges. I like the color of the sponges to come through, but if you wanted to add some color, you could. Here I am again. So this time I've only just poured half a bar, and I'm just going to add the sponge and let it sort of bubble away there as it soaks up all the soap base and expands. Again, I'm just continuing to push these to the bottom. These ones really want to float. I didn't have this much trouble with the other ones. They didn't want to float. I think it's because these sponges are so much thicker and the air pockets in them are, substantially larger. You know what? I'm going to let them float. If they want to float, I'm going to let them float. There we go. It's easier for me to check that the Christmas trees are scented in the rectangular soap mold. I want these to be nice and straight. Obviously, if they're floating, that's easier to do. The blue ones decided to sink. That'd be right. You know what? I'm just going to go with it. The blue one's sunk. I assume it's in the center. I've straightened out all the other ones. I'm happy with where they are, and I think I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay, so a couple of hours later, and this one has fully set. It's a bit of a mess because I tried to get it to sit on the bottom, but it wanted to float. I also realized, I was pushing it down to the bottom, but I realized the base of this mold wasn't actually sitting flat. There's a bit of a bow running through the center of the mold that you can see. I should have maybe propped it up with a towel or something. But yeah, so you can see there's a little bit of sort of extra soap running along the center there. Just going to give it a trim along the back here. I think next time I do this, I probably just let them float and let the you know, the top be sort of facing up, and that would probably work quite well. Right, so I'm just going to get my knife and try and cut these in half. I'm so glad I left those gaps. Remember how I stressed that you need to have a little bit of a gap there? See how there's no gap anymore because the soaps have expanded so much, and they are butting up against each other. That one there, I even took off a little bit of that red sponge there when I tried to cut that in half. But it's quite easy just to slice down the center here in between the two sponges. Once you figure out where the center is, there we go. And I'm quite happy with those. I think they came out quite well. I'm just going to sort of cut off any sort of ugly bits, maybe bevel the edges a bit. I think these are fine. I mean, like, if you just wanted these for personal use, just take them as they are in the shower. After a couple of washes, all that excess stuff around the outside would be totally gone, and they look fabulous. Alrighty, now it's time for the ones that were in the rectangular soap molds. Gonna pop these out. So yeah, like I said, 3 of them decided to float, 1 of them decided to sink. That's okay, I'm just going with it. This one here, yep, that sat beautifully on the bottom there. I'm really happy with that. That's got a really big sort of pocket there in the sponge. Maybe that's why that one sank a bit. But I do want to clean up these edges, especially because I was planning on, you know, the top of the soap being face down, so the nice neat edge, but now they're facing up. I'm just gonna use a dry cloth and just buff these edges nice and round, and also just give the surface of the soap a bit of a buff just to get rid of any wrinkles, clean it up. That's a beautiful bar of soap. Alright, so here we are. I'm going to just show you here what I did. If you want to give these away or sell them, then yeah, you might want to clean up the surface of these ones, because I had that excess soap sort of running through the center because my soap loaf mold didn't have didn't have the base sitting flat. So what I did is I just took my knife and I'm just gonna scrape off any of this excess soap sitting on the surface here. I just want to really bring out the shape of the Christmas tree. So I'm just sort of buffing off some of that soap that was sitting on top of the sponge, just rounding the edges and softening it out, and there you go. That's looking much better now. You can see that's a Christmas tree, and that is looking beautiful. So there we go. I've got 8 soaps, 8 Christmas tree sponge soaps. So I really love that I was able to get 2 soaps out of 1 sponge using this technique. I really love the colors. I really love the shapes. I love that there's plenty of soap there to build up a really good lather, but also plenty of sponge surface for some really good exfoliation of the skin. So all in all, I'm just loving these cute little Christmas tree exfoliating soap bars. I really hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Please like and subscribe if you love what I do. And until I see you next time, guys, enjoy!